Welcome into PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. With me, as he usually is on these Thursday night excursions into the world of sports, is my good friend, longtime friend, Gary Stein, the voice of the UMBC Terrapin, UMBC Retrievers, lacrosse and men's basketball, and also doing a lot of Stevenson broadcasting. Gary, how are you, my friend?
Doing good, Stanley. I've known you for 35 years, my friend. Can you believe it?
Well, I'll tell you what, how about if I tell you I've known this guy for close to 37 years. He's one of the sharpest minds. He might not look like it, but he's one of the sharpest minds in the high school recruiting world of men's basketball. And I've known Tom Strickler since about 1990, Tom?
1987, Stan.
1987. Wow. So that's 13 and 22. Sounds like 35 years.
Right.
Yeah.
I apologize with the phone in the background. Hopefully somebody will pick it up. But before we talk to Tom Strickler about the very fine job that Kevin Willard is doing at the University of Maryland, both on the court and in the area of recruiting, I've got to tell you a little bit about the Costas Inn. That's right. My friends at the Costas Inn, and speaking of knowing Gary for 35 and Tom for 37, I've known the Triantafilos family for going on 30 years now. They've been in business, I believe, 50 years out there at the Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. Everybody knows the Costas Inn is the place to go for steamed crabs, crab cakes, crab soup, also fantastic steaks. They've got specials on the menu every night of the week. But did you know that you don't have to sit inside with other people if you're uncomfortable doing that? All you have to do is go to their website, CostasInn.com. You can order your food online, pay for it online. When you pull up, you don't even have to get out of your car, and everything you order is packed immaculately. Take a look at the menu tonight at the CostasInn.com, not the CostasInn.com, and maybe you'll order soon for curbside pickup. All right, Gary Stein and I are here as usual, but we got an old friend on, and there's a reason I wanted to have Tom Strickler on. And Tom, first of all, how you feeling, buddy?
I'm feeling great. And actually, you're right. It's probably around 1990 when we met. So
yeah, I started doing that high school basketball show with Baker around 88. I probably met you in 88, 89.
Right.
I think we started using you on the show. Tom has always been, and seriously, he's got how long a career have you had in the high school recruiting world? Scouting?
Well, actually, it's funny. I actually started the recruiting service in 1987, but I've been interested in high school basketball going back to the early 80s.
Okay.
And moved to Baltimore in 84 and got to know the scene, started getting to know the scene about 85 or 86.
All right. Well, you're right now, you're with Steve Keller's National Recruiting Report, correct?
That's correct.
That's
Steve's my boss. He brought me on board in 1987.
All right. And is that a place that you have to pay for membership to be able to get to it? Or is it for coaches, really?
It's a coaches only service, because at one time we started showing parents and they didn't like our ratings. So we decided not to do that.
Okay. I got you.
Makes sense.
All right. Now, before I turn you over to Gary, because Gary and I do 2 questions each pretty much religiously, we trade off.
Sure.
I do want to ask you the big question in the room about Kevin Willard. How long have you known him, and what have you always thought about him as a recruiter, how hard he works at it, and how good he is at it?
I got to know Kevin when he was an assistant at Louisville, and then when he became a head coach at Iona, I got to know him off and on, but didn't know the substance. We just talked about players and nothing much more than that until recently.
Okay. Since he got the Maryland job?
Or? Yeah. I mean, I did have some dialogue with him at Seton Hall, but not mostly our scouting service. We mostly deal with the assistant coaches.
Okay.
Once in a while, the head coaches, but mostly assistants.
All right. Well, we're going to dig into the job you think he's doing right now based on some results. Gary, go ahead.
Well, so Tom, let me ask you from your standpoint, just to give us zoom out a little bit and give us a little broader picture. You know, one of the detriments to Mark Turgeon's job, pundits were saying, was that he didn't really do a great job of recruiting the DMV. the Delaware, Maryland, Virginia area. A lot of the top prize recruits would leave the area, not go to the University of Maryland. But my question is more of a zoom out question, and that is, how good is the DMV compared to other areas around the country?
Oh my, that's a good question. Well,
It
it's
is a great
it's
question.
right now it's a hotbed. Maryland, Virginia, Northern Virginia, DC, tremendous talent. For instance, the two kids at Duke, Trevor Keels, Jeremy Roach from Northern Virginia, Cam Whitmore's from Archbishop Spalding. I went and seen him last night. He was unbelievable with Villanova. But Gary, they just keep coming and coming and coming. And we get to see them when they're freshmen and sophomores, and we watch them all through their high school career, and it's just loaded with talent. Hunter Dickinson, example, the big kid at Michigan is from DeMatha, and specifically with him, they recruited Mark Turgeon recruited a couple of twins that were the Mitchell twins that were touted to be great.
Right.
And what happened is he recruited the Mitchell twins and didn't have any room for Hunter Dickinson and didn't recruit him. And there were some things on the court about that. If you remember, there was a little dust up with the coach from Michigan, and that was some of the things that Hunter Dickinson said in relation to that. So
yeah, DeJuan Howard. Yep.
Yeah. So to your point, it's a talent-rich area.
Right. Okay. So we've established then how important it is then, obviously, to recruit the DMV. So, and it seems that Willard has done a good job. And we'll talk about some of the recruits that he has on the team this year and what's coming in next year. Why do you think Willard has done a good job or do you think he's done a good job so far in recruiting the DMV?
And if so, Tom, why do you think
Why?
he's done
Yeah.
a good job?
Well, I think it's too early to tell. But I got to know Kevin Willard in the last month a lot better than I've ever known him. And he's a down-to-earth, genuine guy. His feet are planted squarely on the ground, and he knows what he's up against. And he has a good understanding of basketball. He feels like he's in hoop heaven at the University of Maryland, because before he was at Seton Hall, and he admitted that he didn't really recruit a lot of the players from New Jersey because they knew where the school was located. And if you come in on the wrong side of Seton Hall, it's not a pretty sight.
Right.
So he did a lot of his recruiting in New York. Now, he did recruit a little bit in the DMV, but not very much.
Let me ask you a question. You and I have talked a couple of times in getting ready to do this soon. No Mike Krzyzewski, no Jay Wright at Villanova. How much does that help Kevin Willard if his approach is, as Gary's suggesting, to really hit hard on the DMV? These are kids that Mark was losing out on or not after, whatever the reason, but with two great coaches like Wright and Krzyzewski not coaching right now, how much does that help Kevin's approach?
That's a very interesting observation, and a segue into my comment is that the door is open.
Mm.
John Shire, nice guy. Hubert Davis looks like he's doing a good job. I was up at Villanova last night.
But they're not Roy Williams and Mike Krzyzewski.
No.
Yeah.
And Jay Wright Kyle looks like he's going to do an okay job, but know that the door is clearly ajar, and that's an opening for Kevin Willard to now get involved with these players, because they're not as inclined to go to Duke or North Carolina or Villanova right now. And Kevin, by his early success, is showing that even the Walt loss at Wisconsin, he shows he can coach them up.
Yep. I got to say something before I ask you another question. I just want to make an observation. Did both of you watch the Illinois game?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you stay with it because they carried the press conference afterwards? Did you watch
I
it?
didn't stay with it.
Okay, Tom, did you?
When you stay, do I watch the whole thing intensely, or?
Yeah, the whole thing. Because there's a reason I'm saying this. I'm asking.
I guess for the most part, but I was on my computer a little bit watching.
All right, so the answer is not really seriously. Well, I
Okay.
watched it the whole time. And about 4 or 5 minutes into the question and answer, he goes, and everything was positive that night. But all of a sudden, I didn't hear it, but Kevin goes, "Can we turn off our cell phones in here?" And he was really angry.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, everybody got quiet, and he goes, "I'm just kidding with you." And he
That's
laughed.
him.
And
That's him.
I don't think I've seen a laugh out of Mark Turgeon in 9 or 10 years there at the University of Maryland. There was no lightness, levity. What does that say about the personality of Kevin Willard that might allow him to really connect with players? Where again, the long zoom out I do on Mark Turgeon is there were so many deficiencies in him as a coach that I think that it was obvious that's why he failed there.
Well, I'm not an X and O guy, but he certainly did. It failed at recruiting, and I put some of that shoulder responsibility on his assistants. They did not do a good job. And I was at practice one time. We were kidding around, and
this is
talking
with
about Gary
this is with
Williams,
Turgeon.
With Turgeon, I said,
Okay.
He said, "Yeah, I wish I was more like Gary Williams." I said, "Well, don't you work on it?" And he kind of laughed. But Kevin, it's the first time I had seen him since he got hired. I was down at his camp. They have a team camp at the university, and I came over. I had my blue hoop group shirt on, and he looked at me and said, "What are you wearing that for?" I said, I looked, I realized. He said, "I got to get you a Maryland shirt." And right away, you felt comfortable around him.
Yeah.
And after practice, they had a practice a couple of weeks ago. A lot of the press were there, and I asked what all these press guys were doing here. And then Greg Manning Jr., the ops guy, said, "Well, we're going to chase them all out of here and get to the real practice." And they got after it pretty good. And I was standing there after practice. He came right down to me, and we talked for half an hour like we were friends. And I said, "Well, you want to go to lunch sometime?" He said, "Sure, come down. We'll have lunch." I mean, of course, Gary Williams is not going to ask you to do that.
Yeah.
But Mark Turgeon never did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a tough guy to know.
Yeah. Tom, let me ask you a little bit more about Kevin Willard and what you've seen, and I think what we all have seen in the game so far is the team seems to play really hard. They're not pretty all the time. Don Carey is not the greatest shooter, but he makes big threes when it's necessary. Not the prettiest player. Even a couple of the guys I was reading up that are going to be coming in next year, and I've got them right here, and I'll take your word on it too.
Sure.
Deshaun Harris, who apparently is the #1 recruit or very high up in Virginia, the state of Virginia, isn't a real pretty offensive player, but the way that they characterize him is he plays like a warrior. He plays hard. And a couple other guys, John Lamoth from St. Francis Academy, who we'll see next year, plays really hard. And so that's my question to you, Tom, is this one characteristic seems to be the driving force behind Willard. That's the characteristic he's looking for in his players. Would you agree with that?
Well, first of all, I think I'm going to hire you because those are astute observations about two players. Deshaun Harris-Smith is a junkyard dog.
Absolutely. Yep.
He'll go to the basket with ferocity. Doesn't shoot it well, but you can't stop him.
It's the will to succeed.
What's that?
It's the will to succeed.
Absolutely. And they took him away from Villanova.
Yep. Villanova offered him. I think UCLA offered him also.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
And a bunch.
But going back to, let's talk about Jonathan Lamoth. Yeah, he's the Energizer Bunny. He's always moving. A good shooter, but has to become more consistent. I think he's a contributor, a piece. I don't think he's a difference maker, but he's a good player, a good kid, and he's from Baltimore.
Mm-hmm. Yep, St. Francis. But so I guess so Stan, I guess my point is that would be the one defining feature that I would say the difference between Turgeon and Willard is Willard has to have that desire in a player. If he doesn't have that desire, I don't think he comes to Maryland.
No question. And
Well, Gary, let me just interject for one thing. You made two great points, Gary. Number one, his focus on the DMV, and then within the DMV, he says, "I'm going to get my kind of players,
right?
That don't have to be beautiful, but I'm sure he'll get a couple beautiful ones." Go ahead, Tom. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, let's in relation to Sean Harris Smith, he got a kid from Bishop Ireton. That was at IMG this year, the basketball.
Kaiser, Jamie Kaiser,
Florida.
Jamie Kaiser.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jamie Kaiser was a two-sport athlete, tremendous quarterback, throws the ball 60 yards. They wanted Jamie Kaiser. And once they got Jamie Kaiser, Jamie and Deshaun Harris Smith are real good friends and AAU buddies. And I think Kevin understood that. So
Kaiser was first, Tom?
He was first.
Okay.
Lamothe was first, then Jamie Kaiser.
Okay, gotcha.
And I happened to run into Jamie at a practice down in Virginia. And I said, "Jamie, let's cut to the chase. What's the chance of him coming?" He said 85%. So I want to give Ralph credit, not as much credit for getting Deshaun Harris Smith, but getting Jamie Kaiser.
You mean Kevin? You mean Kevin? You said Ralph.
Oh,
Yes,
Kevin,
yeah,
yeah,
I'm
Ralph.
not talking about Ralph Willard, his dad.
His dad. So Kevin got him, and then that begat Deshaun Harris Smith. Not taking any credit away from him, but he worked that friendship, and he's also a shrewd operator. I think he's going to do well in the DMV, but he's also going to do well and getting guys from Jersey, good players from Jersey to come down to a campus. That's a lot nicer than Seton Hall. And I don't want to degrade Seton Hall because it's a beautiful school, but the surroundings are a little iffy. But I'm, as a Maryland fan since 1956, I'm happy and excited, and I see some hope. But they've got to get. He knows where he is.
Yeah.
And what he's done already, he's got the crowd, he's got the people energized.
Yeah, he's got the people energized, which was the real tragedy of Mark's tenure there, is nobody at the last 2 to 3 years, I think virtually everybody had checked out. They just didn't believe he was going to be able to pull off any serious run. You know, when you have a guy in the first 2 or 3 years doesn't do it, it's one thing. When it got to be 7, 8 years, and it was sort of the same story,
Right.
we hear of good recruits and that went nowhere, you know, and they were all gone after 1 year, and then other guys came in. I want to ask you one thing, though, about Kevin Willard, and that is, where's he going to get? Because I'm not seeing it in those three players. I'm not seeing it on any of the bench players at Maryland that'll be, you know, juniors or seniors next year. And I'm not seeing it in his other recruits. Where is he going to get a meaningful big guy? Or is that not part of the way he intends to play? Because he got this kid, 6'11" center, Calum Swanton Roger, out of Canada.
Yeah,
and I just don't get a sense this is a really serious recruit. You could tell me differently, Tom. He's got Ike Cornish, who's 6'6", and he's got Noah Batchelor, who's 6'6". And those guys helped him, along with the other three guys we just talked about, to be the number 11 recruiting class in the country. But I don't see any height anywhere. Am I missing something?
No, you're right on target. It's almost like we rehearsed this, because that was another thing I'm going to bring up.
Well,
he's got to get bigger.
In the famous words of Lefty Drizel, I may be dumb, but I ain't stupid.
Yeah. Now he does have Julian Reese from St. Francis.
Fair enough.
And he's an integral part of that program, but he has a tendency to get in foul trouble. Yeah. And when he gets in foul trouble, they get real small. Hakeem Hart and Donta Scott who was the glue, they can rebound. But you're right, they need a force in the middle, because if you look at their league, a lot of their league have these big guys in the middle. Purdue, Michigan, they all have that stud, and I think that's going to define him when he gets that guy. And they're hard to find.
Yeah.
Uh,
Let me jump ahead before I turn you back over to Gary. If he's successful this year, and by successful, I mean 20 or above, okay? Even 25 or above, but has a nice record. Does that help today when you go out to the transfer portal? Does that make Maryland a more attractive destination for a 6'8", 6'9" power forward if you can't get to center? Does that make it a destination spot?
No question. No question. That when you win, creates winners.
Yeah.
And the other thing that comes into play is this NIL.
Yeah.
And now we got another situation where, all right, I hate to say this, but who gives me the best deal?
Mhm.
And not on court statistics, but separate from that. So that enters into it. And he's got to have people that can help him with that, and have people, other players around. Now, Jamie Kaiser, Deshaun Harris-Smith, and Jonathan Moth, I think a big guy would love to have them, and they would love to have him. So that could create that.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. Gary?
You've been around. You've been doing it since mid '80s, right? So you've
Yeah.
seen them all.
You know, Gary,
Let's go.
sometimes Tom Strickler even wears shirts.
Sometimes
I'm used to being on. Hey, I'm used to being on the radio.
Oh, you go shirtless on the radio?
Yeah,
That's
no.
good.
That's good,
That's-
Tom.
Next time I hear you on the radio, that's all I'm going to
Do
say.
you have pants? I just want to know, Gary, and I want to know, are you wearing pants?
Yes, I am. I'm wearing shorts.
All right, good.
Yes. I'm wearing Bermuda shorts.
Man. So, Tommy, let me ask you. Let's go inside the DMV for a minute, okay?
Sure.
Let's kind of break it down. You know, the WCAC, the Washington Catholic Athletic Conference, that's pretty much considered to be, if not the top, one of the top, private school conferences in the country. We know that, the DeMathas of the world, all the St. John, all the great ones. Many players have come. But let's talk about Baltimore for a minute.
Okay.
For many years, Baltimore, the knock was a public school kid couldn't matriculate, okay? You'd have to wait at least 2 years. He's got to go JUCO first, okay? Look, I don't know if that's true or not anymore. You tell me. But separate Baltimore out from D.C. and Virginia, Northern Virginia, et cetera. How's Baltimore doing? What are Baltimore kids doing now?
Well, I mean, again, the Baltimore City basketball is not nearly what it was years ago with the Southerns and Walbrooks and Lake Cliftons and Dunbars. It's all about St. Francis, Mount Carmel, Mount St. Joe, well, of course, Mount St. Joe, and Glen Elm Country School has the best junior in the area. So the private schools are getting all the players. And does the BCL stack up against the WCAC and the Philadelphia Catholic League? No, but in their own right, it's a good, solid league. But there aren't many high major players. There's a Drew McKenna at Glen Country School, a 6'8" combo forward, the best junior. There's a kid, Tyler Jackson at St. Francis, a sophomore, is tremendous. But other than that, Namani Hansberry, the top player, is going to Illinois from Mount St. Joe. But there's good Division I prospects, but not the power kids like in the WCAC. And the power school now is Paul VI in Fairfax, Virginia.
Fairfax, VA, yeah. Mhm.
They are unbelievable. I was going
to ask you about them, but go ahead, finish up.
They're tremendous. They have Deshaun Harris-Smith. They have Darren Harris, the junior is going to Duke. Garrett Sundra, 6'9" kid that's a junior, it's evolving. They have a 6'8" sophomore, Christian Gerdick, who is tremendous. So that's where the talent is. And then there's other schools. St. John's, DC has Donnie Freeman. There are so many players. Gonzaga has Nicholas Lewis, one of the best sophomore guards in the country. Sidwell Friends has Jalen Roger-Roan, one of the best sophomores in the country, and they're in the IAC. So with the WCAC, IAC, and MAC, that's a veritable plethora domain of high major prospects. I mean, I'm going to DeMatha to watch a tournament, a showcase on Saturday. I'm going to see a lot of the DMV teams, and it's going to be a great day. There'll be a lot of coaches there, a lot of high major coaches will be in that gymnasium watching those players, and Kevin Willard will be one of them, or his guys will be one of them, and let's see what happens.
We're talking with Tom Strickler from Steve Keller's National Recruiting Report. It's a coaches only scouting report for college recruiting. Go ahead, Gary.
So when did it change, Tom? Take me back to the history. You know, you like you said, back when we started knowing each other in the 90s, it was all about Dunbar and Southern and Walbrook and Lake. And, you know, you had to go there and you had to be at that gym to be seen, etc. I guess Dunbar is still around. None of those other schools are even around anymore. When did it start to shift over, Tom, to the private schools?
That's a great question. And I guess probably into the 90s, probably into the latter 90s. And I think I got to be careful what I say here, because I think somewhat the decline of the Baltimore City school systems, these kids, when they go to school, they don't qualify, because right now you have to have a 2.0, a 2.5, and an 8.40 to qualify. And some of these kids, the only way they're going to be able to do that is go to another school. And I think that's part of it. But it was like an evolution. And all of a sudden you looked around, and the only relevant school right now is Lake Clifton. City's not bad, but Lake Clifton has one Division I player. City has none. And Mervo, I mean, there's no more Walbrook. There's no more. Southern is now Digital Harbor. I mean, I think kids, and the other thing, I think kids were given opportunity, more financial opportunity to come to these schools, because I think the schools wanted to see more enrollment, more minority enrollment, and I think it helped the whole picture. And now all of a sudden,
they convinced the kids that they could help them get into college.
Exactly. To qualify, right?
To qualify.
Yeah.
Tom, I want to touch base on you before we wrap up. In the old days, under even Lefty, it became a problem to get a player out of DeMatha, and it certainly continued under Gary Williams. Despite the fact that DeMatha isn't what it was, one of the transfers that Kevin Willard got was Jameer Young, number 1, the 6'1" point guard who really played a sensational game against Illinois. If he's successful there, does that help Willard at DeMatha? And does it matter? Are they still a player for serious players, or are they really forgotten now?
I think they're well back in the picture. One of his assistants, David Cox, is a local. He was a head coach at Rhode Island. He's local. Tony Skin's a local guy. He was on the Final Four, George Mason, and he brought. I tell you what's going to help him. He brought his big guy Grant Billmeyer down from Seton Hall, and Grant Billmeyer has an excellent reputation with big guys, and I think that's going to help draw some big men to Maryland, because Grant Billmeyer could get him ready to play professional basketball. So, I think that's all going to add up.
Okay. And tell me about the evolution of this Paul VI. That came in, and it's basically they're kicking DeMatha's butt in terms of what kind of talent they get down there, isn't it?
Well, Glenn Farello is the coach there. And I met Glenn about 25 years ago. He was an assistant coach at Eleanor Roosevelt. became the head coach at Eleanor Roosevelt, won a couple state championships, then had an opportunity to go to Paul VI, and didn't realize what a recruiter Glenn was. And I got the picture because soon after that, he started getting in amazing talent. And he just keeps, I mean, he has more talent on his team than any high school in the country, except for the IMGs and schools like that. They're just, but Glenn, for some reason, knows how to recruit.
How many years has he been at Paul VI?
I'm going to say about at least 10.
Okay. And it's really the last 3 or 4 that he's really gotten it going. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you like to say, go back to Trevor Keels and Doug McDaniel, the backup or the point guard, the little point guard from Michigan. He's from Paul VI. So Glenn's has it cooking there for about a half a dozen years or more.
I got one more question for you, and then I'll give Gary the last question. I've asked you about Willard. Tell me about Willard's staff. Do you know them well? And
I sure do.
How hard a working staff is this in comparison to the previous tenured coach out there?
Well, David Cox, I've known David since he played high school basketball at St. John's. He went to William and Mary, a nice point guard. And David worked his way up the ranks. He was a head coach at Rhode Island. David is a real easygoing guy that is easy to get to know, easy to be around, really knows the game, really knows kids, knows how to approach people, and knows the AAU structure in the DMV. Tony Skin, I don't know Tony as well. Tony was the point guard at Tacoma Academy when Tamir Goodman transferred to Tacoma Academy, so he was his running mate. But again, Tony has a good feel for people, and I think they all understand, because of the previous failures, what they have to do. And I personally like them, so I can't help but to say that I think they'll get the job done.
All right. Garrett, last question for Tom. And Tom, I really appreciate it. We came in asking about Willard, and we got an overview of the area that's really been fascinating.
Yeah, no, I appreciate, Tom. Your information is good. And that's really my final question is kind of, you've been doing it now for almost 40 years, since the mid 80s. And I know you love it. Has your business, I can just assume with all technology the way it is today, and there's a lot more competition now in your business for getting stories and scouting players and getting information. Like, how has your business evolved over the last 40 years? Are you doing anything differently than you used to? Like, what's going on with your industry?
It's interesting. Budgets are getting tighter, and subscribers are not as easy to get. We're getting sad sob stories about, well, we don't have it in the budget. So the business itself is, I'm not saying it's stagnated, but it's mature, that not getting as many subscribers as we'd like. But it's still fun. I still enjoy it. I see people and say, "You still doing this? What are you doing?" I'm doing the same thing I did 30 years ago. I'm looking for players for colleges from Goucher to Duke, and I find them for them. And I've gained a lot of credibility in the industry. And I know Kevin said, "Yeah, I remember you from Iona," said, "and you guys are spot on." And to say for someone like Kevin Willard to say you're spot on, that means a lot.
It's a good feeling. Yeah.
I just wanted to close tonight. We had a guy, I'm in this fantasy baseball league, and a longtime player who played 25 years in the league just announced he's leaving after this past season. There's an opening for Strickler's Ticklers. And
gosh.
And his partner, Gary Stein, to come back. And now you're mature. You're matured as recruiting experts. Yeah, I think you guys would be a stone cold winner in fantasy baseball.
I recruited all those guys that turned out they were on steroids. So, but anyway, that was a fun time.
Yeah, it was.
Good times.
We really appreciate the visit, and we'll do it again sometime. And keep that shirt on.
Yeah,
please, I will do that, and please do let's talk again.
All right.
Good to see
We
you, Gary
definitely will,
Stein.
Tommy. Great to
You,
talk to you.
right. You too, Tommy. Thank you a
All
lot.
right.
Betcha.
Tom, you don't have to hang for this. I just got to do another read for
Sure.
Costas
Okay.
and say goodbye to Gary. Just wanted to tell everybody that's out there in our audience that these Zooms are brought to you by the really a great sponsor, the Costas Inn. They've been friends for a long time, and I've been talking them up for a long time. Everybody knows the place to go for steamed crabs, the place to go for crab cakes, the place to go for steaks, any kind of specials they've got. They've got all kinds of dishes, and it's all available to you online at costasin.com. You can order online, pay online, and then when you pick it up curbside, you don't even have to get out of your car, and no muss, no fuss. Everything is packed immaculately. That's the Costas Inn, 410-477-1975. If you need to call them, and they're located at 4100 North Point Boulevard, and they are open inside if you want to go inside. Gary, next week we've got our like 2-3 times a year visit with Andy Dolich and Marty Conway talking sports, and I'm looking talking the business of sports. So I'm looking forward to that, my friend.
A lot of things to talk about. Absolutely. Yeah. I love being with those guys, Stanley. Thank you.
No question about it. Continued success to Gary Stein over at Studio 83. And you're doing what play-by-play right now? Still have any Stevenson action?
Yeah, I mean, I did football this past year. I've done a couple of basketball games, but my next game coming up is UMBC in the America East. They're taking on Morgan State on Saturday evening, and that game will actually be on Masson. So
Okay.
cable TV, anybody that's got cable TV that gets Masson, you can watch that game. Begins at 5:30 on Saturday afternoon.
And how's it working with your new partner, broadcast partner?
Great guy, Rick Moreland, UMBC Hall of Famer, great sense of humor, was an executive with the Wizards for many years, and he's got a lot of great stories to tell about that. And yeah, we have a great time. I think the broadcasts are going really well. So tune into Masson at 5:30 on Saturday, and you'll get a pretty good local college basketball game.
We'll pick a night and get him on after the first of the year.
That'd be great.
Love
Absolutely.
to talk to him and talk to his insights. And we'll be working on some other things just before the holidays and after the new year. We'll probably do a show the 21st or 22nd, but probably be off for about 10 days after that.
Sounds good.
Gary, thank you. Tommy, once again, thank you very much.
Tommy,
Tom Strickler with Steve Keller's National Recruiting Report. Appreciate the visit, Tom.
My pleasure.
All right. See you guys out there. I'll be back with Ross Grimsley this coming Monday night. Bye.